Same as any EV fire, you get water on it and try to get the batteries cooled as quick as you can.
I just get uncomfortable every time we come back with a budget. There's changes because some errors were found.
The need is much greater. We saw almost 100 more names on our list this year, so we're approaching that 500 number of children mark.
Welcome to This Week Uncut, where we take a look at the week's top stories from CHCO-TV and The Courier. I'm Nathalie Sturgeon.
And I'm Vicki Hogarth.
We begin this week with a look back at the St. Andrews budget, vote, and discussion.
It is budget season in municipal offices right now. I know everyone else is Christmas time, but for people that enjoy following budget or are part of a council, this is quite a busy time of year.
Yeah, and 2 out of the 3 municipalities that we cover in Charlotte County have approved their budgets. We're still waiting for Eastern Charlotte, although I'm sure we will discuss or write about Eastern Charlotte. You were there.
The budget presentation, that was just this week, but we'll delve into that next week.
Exactly. So St. Andrews, as did St. Stephen, held its tax rates. And I think, again, I talked about this in the last episode, but it's pretty symptomatic of the property assessment freeze at the provincial level. Councils are not really looking to make things more complicated for their constituents. They're not trying to make it less, they're trying to make it less expensive because life is extremely expensive right now.
But I think what that does ultimately is it means they have less money to do the things they need to do, and it doesn't mean that the things that they need to do are at a rate that hasn't gone up as well. So that's a concern.
That's right. Actually, I spoke with John Craig, and you'll hear from him in the year-ender that we did together, but he said, we have to live within our means. And so really the property assessment freeze and the tax rates, holding them, is a double-edged sword because it prevents increases in your property assessment bill personally, but it means that the municipality isn't going to get any extra money barring significant development. And in places like St. Stephen and St. Andrews and Eastern Charlotte, development is moving, but it is moving at a pace that is not keeping up with the demands that they have for infrastructure and services that they provide.
And we're looking at 2026 also being an election year, so we will be having new councils starting May 2026. So that's another thing to consider too. I'm not sure how many councillors from every council that we cover are thinking about putting their names in the hat again to run, but it'll be interesting to see how everything plays out, how these decisions are made when you might not be at the table as well.
That's right. I mean, I think, certainly some councillors have expressed an interest in returning to the table. Others have said outright that they won't be back. And that's just part of the process. You live and you learn as part of a municipal government, and this is an extraordinarily difficult job. But the budget is probably the biggest thing they deal with every year, especially for smaller municipalities, because they determine what streets they're going to fix, they determine what infrastructure they're going to replace, they determine whether you're going to get a new Zamboni at the arena. They determine all these things, but they also determine the rate at which you're charged for your property assessment.
Okay, you said a keyword to some people, Zamboni. What is in the budget though for St. Andrews? What's your takeaway from looking at the budget?
Yeah, so there's a few things in there that people will be interested in. That Zamboni is part of the asset replacement, because the current one that they have is kind of on its last legs. But the town has expressed that they're very fortunate to have a mechanic on staff who is able to fix the Zamboni if there are issues, but they want to kind of be ahead of the curve a little bit. They did consider an electric version, but the price was about $30,000 more than the regular version that they have now. And Councillor Lee Heenan said, I'd rather stick with what we know until the technology is better. And I think that's a pretty safe assessment.
When you look at things that were challenged by certain councillors, what were things that maybe, I don't want to say controversial, but may have taken some debate?
Yeah, I mean, there were there are several streets that are going to be paved, and I'm not going to tell you which ones because I want you to go and read the story. But there is also $468,000 that will be taken out of the tourism accommodation levy, which is a fee that is paid by every tourist that comes and stays in St. Andrews at the varying accommodations we have here. And so it's not going to be burdened to the taxpayer, but it is going to drain the tourism accommodation levy, and that's for the Legion lot. They think they can get up to 40 or 50 spaces, but this was a tricky issue because they did propose also paving or extending the Queen Street extension, and a lot of councillors says I'm not really comfortable with spending $1 million on paving. So that was one of the issues that really stuck out for councillors. Again, that Zamboni, the electric option, it was supported by Councillor Mark Blanchard, but not by Councillor Lee Heenan. So there was a bit of discussion there. And at the vote meeting, there was a significant portion of the meeting that Councillor Daryl Weir spoke about, and he took issue with three things: the amount of debt that the municipality is taking on. You'll recall that they bought a new ladder truck, I believe last year. They were intending on spending $2.5 million on wharf refurbishment, but also, again, borrowing for a large portion of the remainder of it. So he took into consideration that this debt is a bad idea, because everywhere he's listening to is saying you need to reduce your debt because we're going to get into tighter and tighter financial constraints. He also took issue with errors that he believed were contained in the budget, that he felt were significant errors that should not be part of the budget.
Okay.
And he took issue with the contract that is with the Wellness Center in the W.C. O'Neill Arena Complex, basically the lack thereof one, and the details contained within that contract.
Okay, and what does that mean when you say lack thereof contract?
Well, I don't, Councillor Daryl Weir seemed to suggest that it was a verbal contract between the town and the clinic, and he sort of said, it's not common business practice to have a verbal contract. If you're exchanging money or you're exchanging something, then there should be, the details should be available, and they should be available, and he wanted them available to him. And he's not been able to get a lot of answers on that situation.
Okay, interesting. And so when it came to passing the budget, was it unanimous?
No.
Okay.
So the capital budget, I believe, was a vote with just one councillor voting nay, and that was Councillor Weir. And that's the first time I've actually seen Councillor Weir not abstain on a vote in a very long time. And then he also voted to receive extra money from the province because he felt that the municipality would be very silly not to accept that money.
Okay, and I guess when we do have wharf refurbishment, something will have to be done in the future. So you can see that definitely financial caution over when this will come down the line. We don't know, and how much it will cost, and what the reality will be of that refurbishment. Still waiting, still to come.
Take a listen at Daryl Weir's comments from the St. Andrews Council meeting.
Okay, well, I guess I've beat around the bush a bit on this over the last couple months, so I'm just going to out and out say some things, and I hope no one holds it against me. There were two phrases that were never used during the budget process: cost of living increases and affordability. Two most common phrases used in governmental organizations across Canada, and in many businesses also. I think it's very important for us to constantly be thinking of those two concepts. All the economic think tanks in Canada are talking about it. It's just the buzzword right now. The other thing was the increase in debt. Again, perhaps not all the governments, particularly the federal, is not talking about decreasing debt, but all the economic think tanks, all the people in the know, or supposedly in the know, on the economy where it stands today and where it's going tomorrow are talking about decreasing debt. And there's never a day that I go through that I don't read an article by some noted writer telling young people, middle-aged people, and even some of us old people how to reduce and eliminate debt. And yet as a town, we are continuing to increase debt. And it bothers me because of what we're putting on the shoulders of the citizens of tomorrow. You know, not going to affect me. I can go out and borrow $1 million tomorrow. I'm not going to live long enough to worry about it. So that bothers me. We had the objective to keep the tax rates the same as what went through last year. But we didn't go through the process of allocating costs to departments and to wards. When Mr. Fitzpatrick was here as the facilitator, he set up the budget. Heaven forbid how he come up with it. I don't know. Don't know whether he does himself, but so we had that for 2023, 2024. Still getting our feet wet, so we use that as a guideline to put our budget in place. 2025, we did attempt to get into it and to develop the model that is set out in the Local Governance Act. We didn't get into it that deep. We did find later that we had made mistakes in percentages and that type of thing. So, and then again this year we come along and say, well, we're going to leave the rate the same. So we again did not go into the model and start developing it. So here we are, year 4, going into year 4, we still haven't got this financial model as was envisioned with municipal reform, that was envisioned in the Local Governance Act, and I'm just wondering what's going to happen next year. We're going to, again, slide by it somehow and still never get the model in place. And that bothers me from a financial point of view. Unanswered. The last draft, the one I worked on the weekend, there was changes of $300,000 to $400,000 in because of the wharf project and various other small things. The one we were presented with tonight had some more changes on it. I can't remember what the exact amounts were, but anyway, doesn't matter, there were changes. And it makes me think, well, if we went at it again for another week, would we come up with another budget with a few more changes in it? Now, we get the same result because we want the same tax rate, but we would have to cut in some place and add on in another place, and we still wouldn't have a financial model that was as accurate as perhaps it should be. And I'll use the word perhaps it should be. In my mind, it should be. Other people may think not. I have a couple other questions here that are to do with specific departments. One was the Wellness Center. I noticed that the agreement, contract, whatever it is, the verbal contract, has been amended to remove certain expenses, and it appears add a COLA clause. Now, the COLA clause was in there last year in the budget, but it wasn't in the actuals. And this is why I thought it was almost mandatory for a municipality to have a contract for something like that. It just is not good business practice to operate on verbal contracts. And this is a business. It's a very important business. It's the business that runs our daily lives as far as the services we receive from the municipality. We're continuing to pay retention fees for the physicians. I asked the question to which ones. I couldn't get an answer as to which ones were getting what. I also asked the question, is there a sunset clause on the fee? And does this agreement go on in perpetuity? You know, these are very valid questions on a contract. Does the contract ever come to an end, or does it just go on forever? And they're questions that automatically pop to my mind, maybe not to everybody's, but things that, as a counselor, I feel I should know for my constituents, and I should have a right to know. There's one final thing here that I will leave until the end of the meeting. Those are my comments. Those are some general comments that just came to mind as I was going through it. I went through the budget 3 or 4 times, and I just sit down and I started writing, so that I could probably come up with more things, and maybe some of them are big issues to me and not to others. But to me, there should be a very detailed working paper file on the budget. It should be subject to some type of a detailed file review by people that did it, or somehow, I realize there's only a couple people in the office, but I just get uncomfortable every time we come back with a budget. There's changes because some errors were found. And the one I looked at over the weekend, you know, there was a $300,000 error that was going to be taken out of the capital reserve to make the budget balance. Well, that's a lot of money. $300,000 suddenly in expenses that weren't budgeted. So those types of things make red lights come on when I'm looking at something.
That was Councillor Daryl Weir of the town of St. Andrews discussing his issues with this year's budget. So you would have heard him talk there very specifically about why he had those concerns. He mentioned that he had asked for which doctors were getting retention payments and whether those retention payments continued in perpetuity. Like, do they just go on forever? Like, what is the limitation? And that I don't think was ever really addressed in the meeting.
Okay. How did people respond to his comments around the council table?
Well, certainly there was a response, and the Chief Administrative Officer, Chris Spear, spoke pretty candidly about how he felt about Daryl's comments. And Councillor Lee Heenan also offered his opinion, saying, you know, a budget is a living document. It changes. There are mistakes that are made. So it certainly was, you know, it was a polite discussion. Nobody was rude or you know, that's what good civic engagement is, right? Our councillors debating their thoughts and their issues. So it was an interesting discussion. Take a listen.
Because some of it is questioning my credibility to a little bit of an extent. I mean, I've been doing this for a long, long time, and you know, there's sometimes ups and downs, but I've been in the public sector too, and my budget's more accurate than they would ever get in the public sector. Honestly, yeah, there's things up and down. Part of the problem is I'm about the only one that understands it within the town, because it's complicated with all the funding formulas and stuff. And, you know, that error has been since draft one, so councillors didn't find it either. I didn't expect them to, because it's complicated. I get it. So I was doing the last quality check like you went through over the week, just crossing all the T's and I's. I found that. The debt thing, I understand where you're coming from, but the problem with the town and governments in general is we've been way behind because no one was setting up reserve funds or trying to replace capital assets for years and years. And so the town was put in a position on what to do moving forward. And we've been fairly proactive in replacing assets that need to be. You know, we can always look at cuts, but I guess it's what are we going to cut? Because a lot of our work is refurbishments and, you know, maintaining the service levels we have now, which they talk about. And so if we're going to, you know, want to not do borrowing, then there's some stuff that has to be removed from the budget. It's just simple as that. I'm not saying it's the right thing or wrong thing. Other municipalities have made these hard cuts and lived with it. It's reality. But that's always been our thing. We've been keeping it at that 10% level, which is good. We borrowed a lot in the last pre-pandemic because, as you know, the interest rates were so low that, you know, our first 2 or 3 years of borrowing was at rates of less than 2%. So now is the time to get the work done if you had to borrow to do things like fire trucks and dump trucks for snow removal and street repairs, and the list goes on and on. And so I guess I won't apologize for that because I've always been setting forth to the council, here's what it's going to do for you long term, so you're aware, especially around the wharf project, which, you know, was going to take us over 10%, closer to 15 if we had gone, you know, ended up with a $7 million project that was forecast a year ago. And so it really at the end of is just for the services. The only other thing is about the allocations. You know, staff made an attempt to bring it to you 2 or 3 times, you know, once in the spring and again during budget time. I'm happy to talk about it, but we're not getting much feedback when we bring it to the council table, honestly. And if Councillor Weir and somebody else wants to sit down and work out something more one-on-one instead of around here to come up with something in the future, I'm happy to. But it's, you know, it's been discussed. I've tried my darndest to do it, honestly, and I need a little bit of feedback to what direction we want to go. I mean, we did in-depth as far as allocating wages and stuff, and I'm not sure. And I'm happy to sit down with anybody and go through all of that if required. But it's just going to require some people to sit down and work out something a lot more in depth moving forward.
The first one is, I find that a budget's always a living document. So I understand that mistakes can be made, but a budget is a living document, which means that it has to be able to change in order to accommodate the needs of a particular town. We, as a council, and I've said this before, we're filling cupboards right now that are empty. And that explains to me a lot of why we are taking on a slight amount of debt. I totally agree with the fact that old people, young people, it's all told on them that they should reduce their debts. Exactly. So in that respect, keeping the tax rate the same, I believe is one of the most important things that we as a council can do for a town, is being able that people can do their own budgeting and not have to move out of their homes. I believe that that is the number one priority. We get tons of feedback from small, minor things that happen within the town, major feedback. I've not gotten one letter from anyone, no one, on the budget, not one. And I'm sure there's people out there that are far more educated and far more keen on the ways of a budget. So I would never profess ever to be able to figure out the total occurrings in a budget. So I have not, personally, there's mud on a street, I get 4 calls, but there's nobody calls me ever about the budget. Not one person, nowhere. But you put a mud pile on a street, and I got 4 people calling me. So I look at it as a living document that I think it breathes. It takes on its own life. I have worked in both provincial, private, and university backgrounds, and all the budgets I've been responsible for have all been a living and breathing document. As far as, I'm going to wade in on the health center, I take very big exception to the fact that it is even questioned, because in today's market and day and age, we need health services. So I will fight tooth and nail to make sure that our health services in the town of St. Andrews remain strong and committed.
That was Chief Administrative Officer Chris Spear and Councillor Lee Heenan speaking about the budget in St. Andrews.
We are going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we will examine a boat fire that happened at the St. Andrews Wharf last week. Stay with us.
Just getting a lot of water on it, having water there to protect the structure and the wharf. The crews had 3 or 4 hand lines going while they're down on the wharf.
Welcome back to This Week Uncut. I'm Vicki Hogarth.
And I'm Nathalie Sturgeon. We were called to a fire at the St. Andrews Wharf last week. You were there with me.
I know. I mean, when you're in a town the size of ours, we were there pretty much right after the fire department and watched the whole event unfold for a couple of hours, which definitely at the beginning, it was scary to see, as everyone who has followed the wharf, I don't even know what word to use anymore. I was going to say wharf drama. Let's not call it drama anymore.
Yeah.
The wharf issues this year, knowing that there are weight restrictions on the wharf, the fire truck, when you're watching as just a civilian on the side, the fire truck couldn't go down. But I think they were also wetting the wharf to make sure, if this fire spreads. There were all things the firemen were thinking of that might not come to mind to someone who's not trained as a firefighter. And there was also help from St. Stephen, from the Eastern Charlotte Fire Department. So it was really an all hands on deck Charlotte County situation. But because it was a hybrid boat, that added another layer of complexity to fighting this fire. What were your thoughts being on scene and learning everything as we did? I know we knew there was a boat on fire. There's just this time of year, there aren't that many boats at the wharf. There's just really famous ones. You think of Greg Beckerton's boat, All Done. That's one of the beloved boats that's always there year round. So when we arrived, it was quite a thing to witness and to watch the fire departments work collaboratively to make sure everyone was safe.
Yeah, I endeavored to sort of research about hybrid boats, and for the most part, a large portion of hybrid boats are actually just pleasure crafts. So boats you'd see in the summer that are, either docked by the wharf or near the wharf, because EV technology is still evolving, and so it's certainly a question. When we got to the scene, we certainly saw a flurry of activity. We saw that smoke, that brown-black smoke coming from the boat. There didn't appear to be any sort of red flame, we couldn't see that. But I'm sure there are community members here who can remember the wharf burning in 1993. So I think that was a moment of discomfort and potentially a bit of fear, because history can repeat itself. But they did, they really worked on getting the wharf hosed down so that it was wet. It was also cold, it was extremely cold. But I did do some research to just see if I could find if there's procedures or protocols for how you fight a hybrid fishing boat fire. And even Transport Canada didn't have any specific information about how you tackle a fire with lithium-ion batteries.
Okay. When you spoke with Fire Chief Kevin Theriault, did he explain how the fire department interpreted what they were given when they arrived at the scene and how to go about fighting it? Because we were watching from the sidelines. I know a lot of us were wondering, are they trying to sink the boat? Because that's eventually what happened, but that wasn't the intended purpose of all that water. So what was their strategy when they knew what they were fighting?
Yeah, so essentially, so Chief Theriault was actually in Ottawa when this fire happened, but he came back and received a full debrief from the team, and essentially he said, this is like any other EV fire. You have to put water on it to cool those batteries down, and for those who might not understand, lithium-ion batteries are extremely common. They're found in your cell phone, they're found in your laptop, they're found in electric cars, of course, but they do have a history of, getting warm or combusting or catching fire. There's one of the good examples that the fire department will give is if you put your phone and you charge it on a surface that is, like cloth, like the couch or your bed, there have been a rising number of instances where it's caught fire.
Right.
So that's the type of battery that they were dealing with. So essentially what Chief Theriault said was they had to put a lot of water on it and to cool those batteries down to allow them enough room to sort of think about what they wanted to do next. He did say, because I said, listen, there was some speculation that potentially you decided to sink it as part of the fighting effort. He said no, and I learned a new term, gunnel.
Okay.
Or
use it in a sentence, please.
There was plenty of gunnel.
Okay, use it in a sentence, please.
Well, I'm gonna take Chief Theriault's words and say there was plenty of gunnel when the firefighting efforts stopped. And so the gunnel is the top edge of the side of the boat. So that would have been very clearly visible to them when they stopped fighting the fire. So it's sort of unclear why the boat sank, although there are many reasons for that outcome.
Okay, I will use it in a sentence as well. There was no gunnel visible the next day when I went back to take a look at where the boat had been and what remained. But we also got to witness, which was for a small town, we were also 2 minutes away when the rescue mission began, when there was a diver involved to retrieve the boat, to buoy it up again so they could get it out of the water. So that was interesting too. I think the concern though is that what has been maybe polluting the water since? What does having those hybrid compartments mean when they have been in the bay for over 24 hours? Should we be nervous about anything? What is your takeaway from the conversations you had?
The fire happened on Wednesday. The boat was not physically removed until Monday. So that is a long time. But they did sort of put these absorbers around to absorb the diesel because it is a hybrid boat, so it does have diesel and oil on board, which would have, we could see that when we were walking around, when we could only see like the little top of the boat. We could see that rainbow color, which signifies that there is some sort of diesel or oil in the water. So I personally will be trying to figure out what the environmental impact might be. And I do know that the Passamaquoddy Recognition Group has said, we're going to assist with the cleanup because it was their boat. And they're going to, figure out how they can secure safe and appropriate methods to maintain their operations at the St. Andrews Wharf.
Okay, and we were lucky. I mean, luckily the wharf is such a place that people like to walk down. It was two locals from the community who spotted the boat smoking and were able to call the fire department and have them arrive so quickly. So really a community effort to keep everyone safe. But definitely we were very lucky to have the fire departments all across Charlotte County arrive on time and deal with the situation the way they did.
Take a listen to Fire Chief Kevin Theriault on the hybrid boat fire at the St. Andrews Wharf.
Well, we received a call Wednesday afternoon for a boat fire at the wharf. Our crews responded immediately, stretched hose down the wharf, began attacking the fire. St. George and St. Stephen responded for mutual aid. So we had quite a few firefighters on scene to keep rotating people in and out. Same as any EV fire, you get water on it and try to get the batteries cooled as quick as you can. And we just followed that guideline and did the best job the crews could do. They did an amazing job on it. Like, that could have been a lot worse. So.
Yeah, I mean, when we were watching it, we could see that, they were making progress and then it would, come back up again. Can you explain why that might be happening?
It's just the way EV batteries burn. They create their own heat while they're in the thermal runaway. So that's just unfortunately the way those fires will flare up and down, and you just have to keep putting water to them.
And in terms of, dragging the hose, that's because the fire trucks can't go over the approach.
That's right, yeah. There's a 5-ton weight limit on the wharf, so we have to use the smaller trucks and all hose down, which we've been practicing on for the last year or so. So, the crews knew how to do it and where and when to do it. So it worked out really well.
They ended up, I mean, was it a decision to sink the boat, or was it just like the water, there's so much water it's going to sink anyway?
We didn't sink it. Unfortunately, it did sink, but I'm not sure why it went under. When firefighting efforts were done, there were still lots of gunnel left above water, so something below the water line, I'm not sure what would have happened.
That was St. Andrews Fire Chief Kevin Terrio discussing the hybrid boat fire at the St. Andrews Wharf last week.
We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to take a look at the community giving a helping hand to those in need this holiday season.
Rain is falling today. Rain is falling today. Rain is falling today.
Welcome back to This Week Uncut. I'm Nathalie Sturgeon.
And I'm Vicki Hogarth. Well, we're really just throwing to right here in the studio right now because that's where we had the Santa's Helpers Telethon just over a week ago now. But what a tremendous success it was. I know we went into it feeling a little nervous because of, as things we've talked about already in the show today, just prices going up everywhere, everyone's struggling financially, but that's the beautiful thing about Charlotte County is that people really do rise to the occasion when it's about helping their neighbors. So $63,371 were raised in the 5-hour telethon that we held right here in this room just almost 2 weeks ago now, but it was a special, always is a special experience. But I think because we surprised ourselves as a community this year, we were all in tears afterwards because it really is quite emotional to see the whole community get together and make this a reality.
Yeah, I mean, this is a difficult time of year for a lot of people, especially for parents who potentially can't afford to give their kids the Christmas that they want or that they would like to give them. So this is a great initiative, and you know, I sort of floated around all day, and I got to talk with people, and I got to have conversations with parents. The 3 children that came in and from Sistema who played the violins, I got to talk to their parents. Actually, one of the parents and I made a connection over Formula One. So
was that Nellie?
No,
okay.
no. But it was just it was a great conversation because this is a welcoming environment, and if you'd seen some of the wide shots, you would know that we were stuck in here like sardines in a can, but we were certainly making it work. And it was I was surprised by the outcome, but I was very glad that we were able to raise $63,000.
For me, it kicks off the holiday season because you have all these volunteers in here, plus the Santa's Helpers Board. So I really want to take a moment to acknowledge our president, Lexi Brisley, as well as Carrie Lambert and Natasha Reed, these 3 women. I know that CHCO gets a lot of credit for filming all the schools. There's over 1,000 kids from across Charlotte County that film. We filmed their choirs over 3 weeks in November, so that's the highlight of, obviously, the telethon is seeing these little voices sing their hearts out, and that's the reason, obviously, people watch for 5 hours. But Lexi, Carrie, and Natasha are the ones that quietly, behind the scenes, do all the magic in locating the kids, the families that might need the help over the years. It helps that they're very involved in things like the schools, the elementary schools, and the Boys and Girls Club, so they can really figure out who needs the help. Also, they work with the local food banks, all the different elementary schools across Charlotte County to see where that need is and to match people and make sure this program works. Give parents the freedom to pick out the gifts, but it's a monitored program as well with receipts and things like that, so that we make sure that there's, it stays used the way it's supposed to be used. So we know that they are responsible for all that monitoring too, and everything that goes into making sure no child in Charlotte County that it applies for this program is left out. And this year, I mean, this is the thing, 496 children. That's a really big number for a small county of just over 20,000 people. So we knew that we wanted to get to at least 50,000, and that was a number that we all had in our head. 50,000, that means it's really $100 a kid. We wanted even more than that. Everyone knows with prices these days, $100 doesn't go very far. So to be able to surpass that goal because last year, the year before, we were, I think, around 43,000, and so we thought maybe this is a sign of just the times ahead, right? If that was last year, what would this year? And Charlotte County will surprise you in the best ways, and then you realize you shouldn't be surprised at all, because this is just what happens in a place where neighbors care about neighbors, and they really did. Donations came in of all sizes, $20 here, a few hundred there, and it added up to this wonderful success story that I think makes me so proud to be a part of this world. I wrote it in an article about Santa's Helpers that oftentimes we think of New Brunswick as I hate when people say we're the have-not province, because I really think it doesn't represent the reality. We aren't expecting handouts. We are expecting to be overlooked, by decisions made in Ottawa a lot of the time. So we are used to rising to the occasion for each other. And when we say it takes a village, we mean it. It's not just an expression here. And so Santa's Helpers for me kicks off that season, and it's a collective effort. It's the community. It's not just one big donor that gets to be proud of helping out the entire community. It's everyone helping each other, and to me that's really one of the most beautiful things.
Yeah, what a privilege to be such a just a small part of participating in this program and being able to give families across Charlotte County a great Christmas. It's such a privilege to be able to do that.
It is the gift. I know that we're all talking about cutting back on gifts this year, but to me that's the gift that keeps on giving. It is the gift that we give each other, and it makes, you are my family, Charlotte County. I don't have my own children, so I take it out on all of you. I really do feel that way, though. It's like celebrating with the community.
We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we are going to take a look at what the team is doing next week.
Stay with us.
Where it is, I think
Made possible. Welcome back to This Week Uncut. I'm Vicki Hogarth.
And I'm Nathalie Sturgeon.
Looking ahead as we get closer and closer to the Christmas holiday. There's still a lot of things left to be done. I'm very excited though, because next week I'm sitting down with Premier Holt for our one-on-one year-ender up in her office in Fredericton. So always an exciting time. I know this time last year we were looking at the promises that she had made on her campaign tour. And now we'll be talking about were those promises kept and things of the like, which definitely a harder interview after you've had a year in office, but it'll make it more exciting, obviously, for me.
She does that with all the major outlets in New Brunswick, and what a time that is going to be for her, I can tell you. So, because there's been a lot of questions about the government's promises that haven't been kept, budgets that are not going to be balanced, and whether New Brunswickers are determining that they're seeing the results that they expect to see for the spending that's happening.
And we always try to you get about not quite a half an hour, but we come with a team prepared. I'm heading up with Patrick Watt and Jeff Lively. I think we also may have some assistance from Ian might be helping out as well with that one, so that we can really get into the office, start filming right away, and make a whole show out of it, a full half-hour show. So I'm looking forward to that, and that will be for the rebranding of Your Town Matters. Normally we film our year-enders with the Premier as part of Southwest Magazine, but we've decided as we move into a lot of shows of this nature as well, that we will be rebranding Your Town Matters to Town and Province. So that way, that'll be a show where you can have both local leaders, but municipal leaders, as well as provincial leaders, different MLAs and the like. Even I think MPs will be a part of that show as well. So it's going to be a fun rebrand for 2026, but we're going to launch it at the end of 2025. So I'm very much looking forward to that. Also hoping to get to Grandma Nan. It's always a matter of weather and time. This takes a full day out of the schedule to get there, but I really would like to do a sit down with Bonnie Morse, either you or myself, to do a year-ender with Mayor Morse, because she's always been up for doing a Your Town Matters. So it'd be nice to do a year-ender with her as well. I know that you've already got one underway with Mayor John Craig.
Yeah, I sat down with him earlier this week. That episode will not air until a little bit later in our timeline. But certainly, we did extend that offer to St. Stephen Mayor Alan McEachern, who declined to participate in the year-enders. We're still sort of waiting to hear from St. Andrews Mayor Kate Akagi, so we'll see what happens.
Okay, so time will tell as the time is ticking, obviously, as we get closer and closer to Christmas time. So hopefully that can be a reality. I know, especially St. Stephen, a lot to be proud of. There's a new apartment building going on. They have one of the clinics promised by the province is actually the lease was signed. So a lot on the go there. You've got the world's oldest basketball court, things like a hotel coming about. So many things on the horizon for St. Stephen. So it would be nice to have that sit down.
Yeah, it would. And it would be a fantastic story to end the year with. But if they don't want to participate, we can't make them. So
that's fair enough. Fair enough. We've had a wonderful time. I love this time of year because we get to do a lot of fun stuff too. So last week was parades. We got to the one in St. Stephen and the one in St. Andrews as well. I will do my best next year to see if I could do Eastern Charlotte, because I know Eastern Charlotte's on the Thursday. So next year I plan to do Eastern Charlotte, St. Stephen, St. Andrews. And then Grand Manan, I'm going to figure this out. I've got to figure this out. One year I want to get to all of them, but it's definitely, there's a lot on the go locally this time of year, so it's been fun to get to it as much as we can on top of doing our news and council coverage.
Yes, and we have a shorter timeline to get our beloved print version of the Courier out to you in January.
Yes.
And we're almost there. So it's day 11 of December, so 11 days. In 11 days, we have put together an entire newspaper. So it has been a tremendous effort from everyone who is involved. Guy Gru, Cindy Kohler, Mo Bask, all kind of pushing to get this done and completed so that we can all enjoy our Christmas with our families and in the community.
Yeah, it's been a wonderful year, but I can't wait to have a little downtime and then usher in 2026, which with municipal elections should be an exciting one. So I'm glad though that you will be my sidekick here again, and that we can continue doing This Week Uncut for weeks and weeks and weeks to come. So it'll be an exciting look ahead. And thank you once again, though, for sitting down beside me this weekend for going over all of our local issues. I always look forward to it.
It's always my pleasure to be here with you. On that note, we want to thank you for all the support you've shown us this year and for this show. We started it as a bit of an experiment, and it has turned into something we are proud of. Our team will bring you 2 more episodes, including this one of This Week Uncut in 2025. Vicki and I are preparing a year-end episode to showcase what we believe to be the biggest stories of the year. After that, we will be taking a break. We hope you enjoy the last show of the year, and we'll see you again in early 2026. Thanks for watching. I'm Nathalie Sturgeon.
And I'm Vicki Hogarth.